who's a CXO? And we're like, hey, sasa huyo surely, such people, who are they? At the customer what? Chief?
Experience officer.
Yes.
I won't forget now.
Chief Experience Officer.
Yes.
The person who's with us here this morning is not going to talk to us about CXOing, but she understands what CXO is. All right. Pauline Warui, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
All right.
Karibu sana. We call that the hot seat of the situation room.
All right.
How does it feel?
I'm game.
Your game. So what's a CXO?
A CXO is somebody who sits in an organization and actually looks at how the customer experiences the brand. So you are actually looking at the full customer journey end to end, because different departments do different things towards a certain product consumed by the clients. However, if you don't look at it end to end, what happens is that every department does what it's supposed to do. Unfortunately, then you will have fragmented processes. So you look at the business processes, you look at the whole customer journey, you look at whether the people who are doing the job are fit to do the job. So you look at so many things to ensure that the product being consumed by the client or being experienced by the client, the brand being experienced by the client is actually good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are they the same people who used to be called customer relations manager or customer service manager or officer? Are they the same?
No. There is a difference between customer experience and customer service. Customer service, we define it mostly as the actions that you do sometimes post-sales. It is also the actions that you do to make sure that when the customer experiences the brand, experiences the product, that you are actually having interventions. That's where you'll have the call center, you will have people supporting the product, or what you used to call after sales.
Yeah.
But when it comes to customer experience, you really are looking at how does that customer feel when they experience this brand. Have you made sure? Have you preempted? Customer experience is proactive. Customer service in most instances is reactive. It is what you've experienced, then you're coming back and telling me, please fix this for me. Then the interventions that I do around that.
Okay. So, Pauline, you're here today as a mentor and a coach as we continue marking 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Now, we want to look at gender-based violence at the workplace.
Yes.
And you'll tell us a little more about that. But first, CT will welcome you with the day's proverb. Every week, CT goes to an African country.
Yes.
And then it comes with proverbs from that country. And your job is to listen to the proverb and give us your own interpretation of it. Okay?
Yes.
This week, he's in some country which is in sub-Saharan Africa. Is this, how is it located in terms of the Limpopo River? Is it still north? Or is it cross-country the Limpopo?
North. Yes, it's still north.
Still north of the Limpopo.
In fact, it's so near north it may actually be inside the Limpopo River, but it's not too far away from the Limpopo River.
Okay, so
Yes.
it's in southern Africa.
Yes,
And it's a kingdom
it's a kingdom
in southern Africa.
Yes, and the strange thing about it, it's bordered by only one country, rather by two countries, but one borders it on almost every side. I'm giving you hints.
Okay.
And I'm
Kingdom with only two neighbors,
Yes, and it's in South Africa.
and it's in southern Africa.
Lesotho?
Good try. So this one isn't Omo pick a box. So that is one gone, two. Try.
You're taking me back to my primary school. Swaziland. Kingdom, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. But it's no longer called Swaziland. Do you know what it's called?
No? Remind me.
Eswatini.
Eswatini.
Yes.
Yes.
It is bordered by Mozambique, the northwest. Then after that, it's bordered by South Africa to the north, to the west, to the south, to the southeast.
Yes.
So it's just yes. One could argue it's actually in South Africa. Yes. Now the proverb: always taking out and never putting in soon reaches the bottom.
Always taking out and never putting in.
Yes, soon reaches the bottom.
Yes.
Now I would like you to tell us what you think this proverb means.
You cannot give everything. You keep giving, you will empty yourself. You just spoke about loving thyself.
Yes.
At some point, you also have to put in, you have to receive, and you have to give yourself. That is how I would look at it.
And you looked at it very well. Thank you. Yes.
Be selfish in a way.
No, every once in a while. In fact, the good book that Christians refer to as the Bible, that manual of operations, also says that you should love your neighbor as you love thyself. So,
Don't love your neighbor more.
as you love yourself.
It's just as much as you love yourself. Okay. So what do you do now? You do coaching and mentoring.
Yes,
What's that?
I run a company called East Africa Customer Care Center. I do the CXO. I still continue doing that because that's what I'm good at. I also do mentoring and coaching. And why do I do this? Mostly it's because I have walked a long journey. I am no longer the young spring chicken. I have walked a long journey, and I believe one of the things he's talked about, filling that cup, even for yourself, but sometimes feel for others so that they don't have to walk the miles you walked. Sometimes show them a shorter route. So that is why I do mentorship and coaching. I build contact centers. So if you're looking to building a call center, predominantly as people would call it, or contact center, I do that. So that is also something I do. I run an e-commerce called Zella, new in the market, and I also am into logistics. I've just come back from Uganda, where we are running a logistic company called Yellowbird.
Pauline.
And beyond that, I also give back to society. I'm the chair of Commonwealth Business Women. I chair for Kenya. So I bring business women together because for me, I'm experiencing business post-corporate. What does that look like? What does that mean? What are the pains? How do you manage? But beyond that, I'm a mother. That is my most important role. To one handsome son. Yes. The marital status, miscellaneous.
Akona mtu.
Akona mtu.
Huyo handsome son.
Hapana. Ako available. 27-year-old Hank Koda.
Making his money.
Yes.
Lydiah, our producer, tutaongea.
Yes.
So, you're still running.
Yes.
You know, so you're still not a spring, you're no longer a spring chicken, but
Yes.
you are still Okoh, right? You are still busy.
Yes.
And as you're giving back,
Yes.
you have interacted with people and workspaces in very many ways. And you've seen relations between people in workspaces.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Now, when you talk about gender-based violence at the workplace, how would you paint that picture? One would think that it's a man beating a woman or a woman beating a man in the workplace. How would you paint the picture of violence in the workplace?
Well, let me first clarify. When we say gender, everybody refers to women being beaten.
As the victims.
As they are the victims. We know how to play victim very well. So it is not about necessarily about that. It is really about, is there GBV going on at the workplace? Is it affecting women as much as it is affecting men? Is about, are you being harassed, sexually harassed? Are you being emotionally harassed? Are you being even maybe physically violated? Because this is not just happening between men and women. It is really also men and men, women and women. So these things are happening in the workplace, but we are not coming out and talking about it. So let's put it in perspective. It's about everybody being able to talk and speak out about what is happening at the workplace when it comes to GBV.
So, what are some of the things that we're talking about when you're in the workspace and gender-based violence? It just seems at the onset it sounds like two things far removed, right? Yes. Because people are at work, they're getting the business done, they go home. One would assume. So when you say there is GBV at the workplace, what are some of the things that we are talking about, or that could occur at work?
Let's even just start from where you are joining an organization.
Yeah.
Getting the job. I saw an MCA talking about nominations to be nominated to work. So let's not just look at the workplace as the corporate. It's really everywhere that you wake up to earn your daily bread. And MCA says this has become gross because for women or even for men to get the jobs, perhaps you have to date somebody, all right, so that you can actually get that job. People are desperate for employment. And sometimes I've sat in places where I have had young women and young men say, I sacrificed. I knew this person was even HIV positive, but I just do PEP to get the job.
Wow.
Yeah. So you can actually see the first level is even at the entry point, the desperation. If I don't have money, then what is my currency? I'll be violated so that I can get into the workplace. Now you get into the workplace. Do you think that violation is going to stop? You have to pay your duties. You have to pay your tax in the form of giving yourself, whether you're male or female. So that continues. These offices that we see, we hear so many reports even of the small offices where there is a main boss. You to keep the job, you have to be violated. Whether it is the older women or the younger women, if they decide this is how you're going to keep your job, this is what is going to happen. So these are some of the things that we really would like to bring out. And I want to bring a perspective where we are saying we need to stop being ashamed to talk about these things. They're happening, but we are told to shh, don't talk about it. I'll talk about when you're pregnant at work.
Yeah.
What happens when you get pregnant in an office? You're violated in so many ways. You're told you can't do this job because you're pregnant. You're told, get off, we need somebody who can work. We can't afford to give you leave. These are some of the things that are happening in the workplace.
Yeah.
But they go unreported because we desperately need the job. This is what unemployment is driving us into, but we are not talking about it. Because if we talk about it, where will I get any reprieve?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's about exploitation and a lot of discrimination.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But is it based on gender or is it just based on
human behavior?
Yeah.
It's based on gender because mostly you'll find, let's talk about the way everybody perceives this. A young girl, an intern, walks into the office. She walks around and everybody looks at her and thinks, wow, nice new bulb, like it. What happens? The men will go for her. She will decide, am I principled enough to go back home where I'm suffering, or where I could even be taken advantage of by other people because I don't have a job? Or will I choose to be violated at work by this one boss who is giving me money? Or do I go out there and become a slave queen? You know, the word that we have really formalized and decided this is the norm. Where I will go and be also I call it violation. Do you know why I call it violation? It is not done because they are willing always. It is done because I have to put food on the table. I have a child.
It's a power matrix.
Yes.
This person, especially if you're an intern, you're new to a new work environment, you're a junior.
Yes.
And somebody senior to you.
Yes.
Is making these advances.
Yes.
You don't know how to relate. You don't know how to react. You don't know how to, whether it's,
yes.
the senior person is of the opposite gender. You just do not know how to do it.
Yes. And number two, you're not having any sexual relations with this man because you're willing. Neither will you be able to be with this man or woman the way you want to. And that's why I would classify it also as part of GBV, because it is when he or she requires. And I put both genders because we really are discriminating against the men.
Yep.
Women are also doing it. It is when and where I require it, not when this other person. So the person is really violated. Yes. And if they don't do that, acts of violence we have seen continue, even beaten. So
does it happen? Does it go to that extent?
Yes. Yes. And do you know what it progresses
come on,
to?
Pauline, how does it get there?
How does it get there? It is one taking advantage of the other, isn't it? Once it becomes, I'm taking advantage of you, you're no longer human to me. You're something I'm using. And if you bring any commotion and start saying, no, you can't do this to me, violence.
Pauline, can I ask you, you talk about it happens because one requires it. But
Yes.
aren't there two requirements here, really? The person who is giving, whether it's forced, in this case, really, in their mind, it's forced, right?
Yes.
The person who is giving, in this case, we're talking about sexual favors, whatever it is, a date, whatever.
Yes.
What is required from them is this job.
Yes.
They want the job, so they're
Yes.
ready to do whatever they can.
Yes.
What is required from the person who is soliciting this is control, pleasure, whatever. I can get it because I'm in a position and I can do that. So isn't there a requirement on both sides? It's not just one person who has a requirement. Whether one is outright gross or not, it's still a requirement, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
However,
But it is not justified.
No, it
Okay.
is not justified. And this is why sometimes when we talk about the workplace, it may not be the battering that we see when it comes to domestic violence, but it is equally abuse. It's equally abuse. You're violated, you are infected with diseases, so you may not have the physical injuries, but emotionally you are as battered as anybody else who has been physically abused.
Okay.
Yes.
What aids this culture in an organization?
Number one, I said it's in the inequality. You have no income. You are dependent on that job. It is also the fact that we do not have strong policies. Yes, we have them written very well. Every organization will talk about our sexual harassment policy, about human rights, a constitution. Every organization that you go to, you'll find very nice documents. But where are the controls? So what makes this happen again is shame. And that is why I brought the issue of shame. How many people are willing to go out there and say, I have been beaten? Do you know who is beaten the most? The women who have a high income.
By whom?
By their husbands, by their lovers, by whoever partners they choose. Why? Because then the cultural norms and societal expectation is the man should always be the provider. Now, look at the work environment. Women go to work, or men, and let me talk about women in this instance. Let's say you're a CEO of an organization. You're running the show. You have to go. After this, you go, you run another meeting. By evening, there's a cocktail.
Yep.
What time will you go home?
After the cocktail.
Yes, thank you. What would you have taken?
Cocktail.
So, you get home and there is a husband who is waiting for you. What will happen?
Atakuuliza saa hii ndio mtu ambaye ameolewa anafaa kuingia kwa nyumba.
Exactly. And the neighbors also will be
Self-respecting.
Yes, a self-respecting married woman.
Yes.
Coming home
at this hour. Those are the things.
And having consumed this and the other.
Yes. Yes. And you are with who? You are with men. So these are the things that, we need to bring out and talk about. And older, more experienced women need to share and tell younger women what to expect even when you're getting married. Not to start in a wedding and you're being told men are Simbas. You have to keep calming your Simba. How will you calm your Simba and you need the income? These are the questions. Women are being beaten left, right, and center. Top senior corporate women, right? Women who work, let's say, in salons because your last client, you have to finish the business.
Yeah.
So let's not just look at the workplace like, the big top corporates. It is these women who are working shift jobs.
Let me ask you,
yes.
does the victim end up taking it out on someone else?
Sometimes
in cases like this.
Sometimes
because we're talking about somebody here who is powerful in this environment, but when they leave this environment, they go to another environment where their power is taken away. And then tomorrow they come back into this environment and they are powerful. Do they instinctively find themselves exercising that power?
I would say yes. Because, victims of violence almost equally now become violent themselves. Remember, this person is doing a lot of hiding, is emotionally damaged. So what happens in most instances, you'll find they'll be aggressive also. They're trying to get relief. It is an outlet. And sometimes it may not even be the physical, because at work mostly it is the emotional abuse that really violates that basic right of anybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a likelihood that many violators in workplaces
Yes.
are dealing themselves with something else.
Yes.
That you are just an outlet.
Yes.
When this person is bullying you at work,
Yeah.
you're an outlet.
Yes.
When the person is harassing you at work, you're an outlet for what they're dealing with.
Absolutely, because there's so much bottling in. And a human being, before you used to be told, come to work. We don't care about your issues.
Yeah.
Those are,
Mambo
yeah.
yako ya nyumbani, wacha nyumbani.
Weka huko. But here you have baggage, and we're talking about bringing the whole person to work. It's a holistic approach to the way employees and employers relate. So you'll find a lot of that. But in most instances, I'll say the greatest violation to the human rights around this GBV in the workplace is not always even the owner of the business. It is the people who have been put into manage.
Absolutely.
Yeah, para.
So then we see a lot. And this is interesting because when we talk about gender-based violence, have been made from the very top, executive, president, former president, and talking about we're going to eliminate it by this year. It's taken on a different form, has it not? Where we think about gender-based violence and we only ever think about the person being beaten in the house, or the person's manhood being cut off, or the person being raped in an alley. And we limit our expression of gender-based violence to those areas. But now here we are saying, in an office where you're wearing a suit, or in a salon where you're braiding hair, or in a car wash, that there is a man or a woman who essentially could ask something of you or take it by force, and it has morphed into something else. It has broadened the scope of gender-based violence. However, in this case, it is asking for your permission.
Yes.
If you do not give it, there is something that could happen to you. In this case, a lot of men and women have lost their jobs, have been victimized at work, and have been frustrated to the point where they have to leave the thing, and in some very dire cases, have taken their lives. This is reality.
Yes.
It's happening today.
Yes.
How then are we supposed to now deal with this GBV that has morphed into, basically it's come to your doorstep. It's not over there anymore. Where we said, okay, that's terrible. That happened in the street somewhere. But it's in your everyday experience. How do we deal with that today?
Let's first start from the fact that we are talking about it here. That we are creating awareness. That we are saying and recognizing this is real. It is not something that is far-fetched. It has always happened, but it was always kept under wraps. So the fact that we are coming out, talking about it, we have seen it. It is the first step, creating awareness. Let's also look at do a root cause analysis, where we are saying being beaten is normal. Neighbors will say, she came at midnight. Why shouldn't she be beaten? Isn't that what happens? Anakujanga usiku. Number 2, tumezoea hao. Stigma. Let us look at the stigma of GBV. Can you imagine like someone like me coming out to say, I have been beaten?
Sure.
I'll be on social media. I will be slaughtered. I will go to hospital.
Now, everything else you do from this point on will be
is based on that.
That's why she's beaten.
Yes.
Or it's because she's beaten.
Do you even know where she comes from? That is why she's beaten. Do you know she's so arrogant because she was earning this and this salary?
That is why.
That is why she's beaten. Do you know her friends? Do you know where she drinks or whatever poison she indulges in? So the stigma comes with a lot of, that comes with actually coming out, is something we also need to address. Then number 3 is to sensitize organizations more and more to be able to put those policies that they have put into place to actually become realities. I have seen organizations where even some of the the frameworks that are created that try to hide what has happened.
Yeah.
Why? This is standard group. Do you think we want reputational damage based on the fact that someone was attacked at work, either physically, sexually, anything? We don't want this reputational damage. So brands are also hiding what is happening. So these are the things that we need. But to be honest, the thing that we need to do is to come and say, yes, the incident happened. We take full responsibility, and these are the actions that we have taken.
Yeah.
The moment we start leading from the front and accepting that because we are not responsible overly, the fact that human behavior also affects the GBV perspective.
Indeed.
We hired somebody. So the sensitization. Then it is more about, where do I report? Where do I get support? Where is a safe space? Where can I go anonymously sometimes to report this? Then what happens what are the consequences about the person who has actually violated? And I know we have really talked about it, and I say it's time to stop talking. It is time to actually start doing.
Do something about it. Pauline Warui is our guest. She is currently a corporate mentor and coach. She is also doing very many things. She runs businesses, she starts call centers, customer experience, and logistics, and very many things. She doesn't get a moment to take a break. But, Siti, you had many questions.
Well, there are many, but it rotates just around two questions. What is it that you can say are the fundamentals of a person who is a violator? This violator, this person who goes out of their way to brutalize individuals and wants to be at the helm of those who give the worst examples of power dynamics in relationships or in the workplace. I mean, what goes into making this person what they are? What are the influences that bring around a person like this?
I think without going to the medical perspective, because that's not my experience, number one, I'll say socialization. What have you grown up believing in? What have you grown up seeing? What are the cultural norms that you have actually experienced in your journey? What are your deficiencies as a human being in terms of gaining access to control that you really want to control? And if you cannot be able to influence like a leader, you almost certainly move to the next level where now you want to control using force. If you grew up in a house where everyone was being battered to conform, then you believe that's the only way. Even at work, you believe unless I make you or I hit you to control. Like, let's also start addressing it from an African perspective. We were beaten. The mwiko, the slippers, anything that was nearby. We were beaten to conform, to comply. So as you grow, you go to school, you are beaten again to comply. You are even conditioned by the bell. If you did not adhere to that bell, you are beaten. So where will you change? Where do you expect this twist to come from? Where people now start talking. It is now we see children being put in naughty corner. You could not have been controlled by naughty corner. It was unheard of. So you can now actually see.
Corners.
There were no corners. So psychologically, this person is conditioned to actually beat, to be able to get results. And here you are, you're made a manager. You have no training whatsoever. You've been told, this must be done. We want these results. And then you start getting absolute forms of power. You're given absolute forms of power without control. So you now lord it over other people. And that is where now you use, as long as there are no controls, then you start using that force and that it keeps graduating. Even in marriage, you never be beaten the first day. It starts with a very nice love story. And then, but the red flags are there. It is the shouting. It is the way the person is treating other people. So it is the same thing with employment. The red flags are there. And then one day, you're beaten once, nothing happens. Then you're beaten the second time. I remember going to a salon and asking the women there, even the men, have you been violated at work or at home? Because you come in as a whole being. And all the women had been hit at one point or the other. I did this again where we were doing an executive training, and we were sitting men and women, and we were doing group work, and we were answering this question so that we see whether there's anything that would be different. And the question was, have you ever been sexually, what are the top 4 things that affect people at work? And for the women, our number 1, we had all experienced sexual harassment. And it is not the necessarily the violent one. It is somebody touching you, hitting your back as you move, or, just lurid comments coming through. So these people are driven into that control from the onset of where they have come up. The socialization, the culture, the people they have been with, and what others have been doing. Learn.
Would we say that some of these things, since we talk about them and we are highlighting them, that we see a reduction in these very adverse behaviors?
I wouldn't call it a reduction. I would call it an awareness, because it is still happening.
So there is increased awareness.
Yes.
But despite increased awareness,
yes,
there is still high prevalence.
Yes. Yeah. And it is not necessarily created by lack of awareness. Sometimes, like I've said, it's the socialization. It's the people who are in their 40s, 50s now, who are managers, senior managers. They have come from that culture of being beaten and taking control using force. Number 2, it is, can I get away with it? I'm aware, yes. But can I get away with it? What are the consequences? Then you see, we are now moving not just from the female male perspective. Homosexuality, sodomy is happening in our schools. There's a lot of lesbianism in our schools, but we are shy to talk about it. I sit on various boards of schools, high schools, and that is one of the major challenges that we have. So when these people come out, a prefect will take advantage. Where are you going to get to talk? How are you going to talk about it? And you can even now be more violated by the people around the center of the person with power. Who are you going to talk to?
The picture that is painted is that we seem to be a nation or a society of individuals who've been brutalized so often that we simply put up with it. In fact, worst case scenario, we've accepted it as normal.
Yes.
Because beyond the workplace and beyond the families we come from, I would point my fingers directly at the manner in which we prosecute our politics.
Yes.
Because the politics has outcomes, and those outcomes help brutalize the us as individuals, right in our psyche, without us realizing that this is what it's doing to us. Because how do you get to a point where we all accept that wrong is actually right? How do we all accept that it is actually wrong to point out wrong?
Fear. Fear of the unknown. Acceptance, because this is what happens. A wrong done so many times becomes really truth in people's mind, like perception.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It really has become the fact that if I find the neighbor being beaten and she's not nice to me, I'm just like, okay. That is society, isn't it? Mm-hmm. If a girl is drunk in a bar and she throws a tantrum and she's beaten, what do we say as a society? She's a nuisance. Let her be taught. That is the society that we are. But here we are saying it is not right. It is something that we have to address and keep talking to our children, making them aware Are we too far gone in it ourselves? Or how do we salvage? And that is why it is even the way we define ourselves, who we are. We are who we are. I am not, my first introduction is not, I am a mother, I am a woman. It is where I work, what I do, what I drive. So can you see that whole societal, we have misconceptions about being a human being, what it means to be a human being. And that is why if somebody is maybe not economically empowered and they are beaten, we say, those guys live like that, isn't it? But if somebody is beaten in Runda, it's a big thing. Yes. So you can actually now start to see where we are coming from and then things that we need to unearth to start healing.
If I look at the way the younger generations are responding, it is completely contrary to the acquiescence that the older generation have of accepting the status quo and the norm.
Yes.
They are not just saying no, they are acting and defying what they consider not to be right. And one could argue that the biggest hindrance to this forward movement are their parents and that generation.
Yes, I agree. I'll ask you a question also. Have you ever seen a therapist?
Have I ever seen a therapist?
Yes. Have you ever gone to a therapist for counseling?
Yes, I have.
Yes. But how many people this age actually even accept to go to therapist?
Yes.
It's a sign of weakness, isn't it? Yes. Or how damaged are you to actually, that is the misconception. And that's why I talked about stigma. How damaged are you that you're actually going to see a therapist? But the newer generation, number one, I will put it this way. They are more exposed and globally. They have stopped operating from the village. And when I mean a village, I mean that central point. You see, like now, my generation, sometimes somebody would only operate within a 30 kilometers radius. So the only thing you know is these cultures. But today, the younger generation, there's media. They're being sensitized. There is internet. They are on X. They are commenting. They have been given the freedom to speak at home. So they will be able to tackle these issues a bit more openly. Then the shame, and I'm really for this word, the shame is being peeled away into a reality that it is not right. They are aware of their rights even from the books they read. I think even from class 3. They are talking about my rights as a child. What rights would we talk about? So you can actually see there is progression in terms of the way things are. Though now we have gone into other influences like drugs, because some of the things happening today when it comes to GBV is not just about, the normal perspective. As we used to be hit, so you pass, guys cheer or they cheer, one touches you. But today you are seeing it becoming a bit more gross also because of this level of exposure and the kind of influences that they are exposed to. So I think for me the take is that different generations, different exposures, different ways of dealing with things, and it's a bit more open society. Yeah.
But then with this open society, one sees even more bizarre things happening. And I'm saying that even the generation that are advocating very vocally and very strongly for change, even from among themselves, we are seeing violations that an older generation would say they had never witnessed.
Yes, absolutely. But the first thing I also think, and I look at it, the very bizarre things, and that's why I'm saying the kind of things the younger generation are consuming were not exposed to the societies we lived in. So that is number one. The kind of drugs, alcohol, whatever it is that is happening. This global exposure also has its side effects. It has its pros and cons. And the cons are this. They are also watching, we have watched, even on TV, on live, you have watched people committing suicide.
Yeah.
They have learned how to kill. It is there. It's on the internet. Dark internet, you see a lot of things. So the kind of exposure that is also happening, the kind of, even when it comes to sexuality, the kind of, when we say the greatest platform of I'm doing nothing, I'm watching nothing, porn, the kind of things that they are watching.
That's what it's called. Huh?
Yes.
Nothing.
Yeah. Every time anybody is caught watching it, they ask, "What are you watching?" What do they say?
Nothing.
I'm watching nothing. So that's the greatest platform of watching nothing. The kind of experiences, animals, anything is there. So you can now start to understand now the cons of this level of exposure. Whether it's at the workplace, whether it's at home, and these are the things that you are seeing. We are seeing a lot of things happening. The Airbnbs. What is happening in those, the orgies. We are ashamed to say these things, but they're happening. How then do we now start bringing it back to perspective? Where are the parents? Let me start from home. It is us. We are busy. We are too busy. We don't even know our children. If you are told your child, I always say by 12, if you've not caught your child or know that they might have come across something like porn, you are too busy. And it is not necessarily in your home. It is a child with an older sibling who will come and bring these things to a small phone will be brought to class. These are the things that are happening, and these are now the roots of these animalistic tendencies that we're tending to see. Yeah.
Back to the workplace.
Yeah.
When you talk about GBV,
Yeah.
because we bring in the word gender,
Yeah.
so you'd think that the violence is being meted by somebody of the opposite gender.
Yes.
What about when it's actually coming from a person of the same gender? Say, female boss, female junior, male boss, male junior, and there's a lot of, like you said, it's either physical or a lot of emotional violence. Do we still consider that GBV?
Yes. Because
but would it be taken up and by HR, by anybody else as, this is a case of GBV?
I think today we would be very pretentious to not agree to the fact or to actually accept the fact that the LGBTQ whole story is real. It is illegal in the country by the laws of the land, but it is happening. And it is rife. We watch it. Anybody who has gone out there knows it's happening. People point fingers and say. So even in the workplace, it is happening. There are ladies who will coerce other ladies. And sometimes unknowingly, this person will tell you, let's go for a drink. If a gentleman tells you, let's go for a drink, then what is happening? We've seen cases where you go from work, after work, what happens? A drink, you're drugged, and then you don't even remember what happened to you. That is number one. The other one is where you are lured into a normal relationship like it would be between male and female, but this is male and male. And you are told, I will promote you. So you go through that, whatever the consequences are, against your wish, but because you have no other option, and I say no other option in quotes, because perhaps you do, but you are choosing to go through the lighter path or the better path. These things are happening and they are real. And this is where now the HR departments need to come in and say, we need to address whatever is happening now. People are being coerced, male to male, female to female. This is a reality at the workplace. And you go to the workplace and don't even think about, just like I said, the corporate. I'm using the salon because there's a lot of diversity around salons. There's a lot of diversity. Let's go into the tea-picking region where there are so many women. The manager is overall. We have seen cases. What are the consequences thereafter? What is HR doing? Can I go to court? How long will it take me? Even though the police then are sensitized. And I go and I report and everything is done. When I go to hospital because I've been violated, what will the nurse tell me? The first thing you'll be asked, even for a woman, how did you get yourself into this situation? You are the victim, but you truly are even the victim of the circumstances happening to you.
Is it possible to eliminate it, or at least start to significantly reduce the GBV in the workplace?
Yes, it is. And I always say, leadership, I think it starts from a leadership perspective, a stewardship, where we say, in an organization, if we say this should not happen, and there are consequences, we see big heads rolling, big heads being prosecuted. Do you think it will continue? Is it because then it's the leaders sometimes who are doing it that these things have no consequences? That is where we need to start from. Yeah.
So should organizations maybe establish committees of juniors
Yes.
to deal with such issues?
Yes. It is very important to have, beyond the normal structures that we have, you can have cross-functional teams that actually are looking at GBV at the workplace. And also work on things that are realistic, because then when we talk about GBV at the workplace, and then sometimes it's also malice from the junior to the senior,
Yeah.
then everything becomes null and void. And that is the story that is moved. It is a story that now comes and says, you see, we told you these stories are not true. So let us also establish processes that are fact-based so that we can actually be able to eliminate this.
Pauline, thank you for joining us today. Pauline Warui, she is a corporate mentor and coach. We've been talking about GBV at the workplace as we continue marking 16 days of activism against gender-based violence.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.